Welcome to Voich Daily Finance, the most important news personalized for you every day. Supported by Voich.com.
Today, we're sharing 3 stories. First, we're digging into why Chinese EV giant BYD, the company that surpassed Tesla, just saw its profits collapse, sending its stock sliding. Second, the wild story of luxury jeweler Vashi and how its founder allegedly faked £157 million in diamonds. And finally, we'll examine why President Donald Trump is holding back on sanctions against Russia, a move that involves a potential Nobel Peace Prize and fears of a powerful new China-Russia alliance. The world's largest electric vehicle maker just hit a wall. Chinese EV giant BYD, the company that surpassed Tesla in annual revenue, just saw its profits collapse by 30%. Now, get this, despite this profit drop, BYD has a secret weapon. The company is a master of something called vertical integration. A recent analysis found that a staggering 75% of the components in a BYD CLEV are made by BYD itself. Contrast that with a Tesla Model 3 made in China, which only has about 46% of its parts made in-house. BYD makes its own batteries, its own semiconductors, its own motors. This gives them a massive cost advantage and the ability to withstand a fight that would crush other companies. The news sent its stock sliding as much as 8% as investors reacted to the fallout from a brutal price war erupting in China. This price war isn't just some random market fluctuation, it's the direct result of years of government policy. Since 2009, the Chinese government has poured over $230 billion into its EV industry through subsidies and tax breaks, all to create a global champion. The plan worked, but it worked a little too well, creating massive overcapacity. BYD itself admitted in a filing that competition has reached a fever pitch, directly blaming increased price competition for the hit. But that's not the whole picture. This isn't just about BYD. Average car prices across China have plummeted by 19% in just 2 years. To grab buyers, automakers like Tesla, NIO, and XPeng are in a cutthroat battle, slashing prices, subsidizing dealers, and offering zero-interest loans. Beyond the simple discounts, though, some companies are allegedly engaging in what experts call industry malpractices. One of the most shocking tactics is the sale of so-called zero-mileage used cars. What they're doing is taking brand new cars, registering them in China to count them as a domestic sale, and then immediately exporting them as used vehicles. It's a shell game to inflate sales numbers and clear out inventory, but it's a risky move that could damage brand reputations. The situation has become so intense that even Beijing is sounding the alarm, issuing warnings to automakers to stop the aggressive discounts to protect the economy. Beijing is now trying to solve a problem it helped create. The government's massive investment led to a production capacity of nearly 49 million vehicles, but the factories are only running at 59% capacity. That huge gap is what's fueling this desperate all-out war for customers. One industrial policy expert put it bluntly, saying BYD's surprising performance shows that even the leader of China's EV sector won't necessarily win from a cutthroat price war. And here's a statistic that puts it all in perspective. BYD targeted global sales of 5.5 million cars this year. By the end of July, it had sold just 2.49 million. They are nowhere near their target. So what happens when your home market becomes a low-profit bloodbath? You look elsewhere. This domestic chaos is accelerating the push of Chinese EVs into Europe and the Americas. But Western governments are pushing back. The European Union, for example, has already hit Chinese EVs with tariffs as high as 38%, claiming they are unfairly subsidized. This is forcing companies like BYD to change their strategy, considering building factories directly in Europe to get around the tariffs. So, in an all-out price war where everyone is losing money, who is the real winner? While consumers might be getting cheaper cars right now, there could be a hidden cost. Research from sources like Consumer Reports has shown that when automakers are under extreme financial pressure, they sometimes cut corners. We've already seen that newer EV models can have more reliability issues than traditional cars. The long-term risk is that this price war could lead to lower quality, reduced safety, and worse after-sales service, meaning the consumer who thinks they're winning today might end up paying for it tomorrow. We were just talking about a brutal price war in the EV market, a story of immense pressure. Now, let's shift to a story where corporate pressure gave way to outright fantasy. The most unexpected news in the finance world today has to be the collapse of luxury jeweller Vashi, which went bust, leaving a £170 million hole for its creditors after claiming it had £157 million in diamond stock, when in reality, liquidators found just £100,000 worth in the vault. To understand how this could even happen, it helps to know how the gemology world tries to prevent this kind of fraud. Reputable labs, like the Gemological Institute of America, can laser inscribe a microscopic serial number onto a diamond, linking it to a digital report. Newer technologies like blockchain are taking this even further, creating tamper-proof digital ledgers that track a diamond from mine to customer. The Vashi scandal shows a catastrophic failure in verifying any of this. At the center of it all is its charismatic founder, Vashi Dominguez. He wooed experienced investors, including the former boss of the sandwich chain Pret a Manger and a co-founder of GB News. So how did he manage to convince so-called smart money investors? Interestingly enough, he likely exploited powerful cognitive biases. First, there's social proof. When you see other respected people investing, you assume it's a good bet. Then there's authority bias, where a charismatic founder's claims are taken at face value. This can create a powerful fear of missing out, pushing even sophisticated people to make rash decisions. He built glitzy stores, one with an £8,000 sofa, but behind the scenes, the business was a facade. Former staff say a flagship store in one of London's busiest squares would see only a few people a day. To keep the investor cash flowing, Dominguez got creative. According to an internal email, he ordered staff to pose as customers during major investor conversations and even had sales staff pretend to be goldsmiths at their workbenches. Here's where the situation takes a more complex turn. The company's accounts, signed off by a real accountant, showed sales of over £100 million in 2021. Internal documents show the real number was just $5 million. In the UK, auditors have a legal duty to spot major inconsistencies. For an auditor to sign off on numbers that are inflated by 20 times, it suggests a colossal breakdown in procedure. When the company finally went into liquidation, Dominguez vanished. Bank records show he flew to Dubai the day the court ordered the company to be wound up. One furious investor calls the scam bigger than Hatton Garden, Brinks, Matt, and the Great Train robbery combined. And here's the kicker. Despite the scale of the fraud, both the Metropolitan Police and the UK's Serious Fraud Office have decided not to investigate, with the SFO claiming the case isn't complex enough for them to take on. This highlights a massive gap in the UK's ability to fight white-collar crime. Official reports show that fraud accounts for over 40% of all crime in the UK, yet only about 1% of police personnel are dedicated to investigating it. So with a £170 million black hole, a vanished founder, and law enforcement on the sidelines, the lingering mystery is, where did all the money go? Believe it or not, when money seems to vanish like this, it likely wasn't stolen in a single transfer. Forensic accountants find it was systematically burned on the facade itself. They reconstruct the company's financial life, analysing every expense like that £8,000 sofa, extravagant marketing, and sky-high rents for empty stores. The money didn't disappear. It was laundered through the business itself, spent to maintain the illusion that attracted investors in the first place. Speaking of authorities choosing not to act, our final story looks at a case of strategic inaction on a global scale. The story begins with a decision that caught everyone by surprise. US President Donald Trump has threatened a big bazooka of sanctions against Russia, but with attacks on Ukraine continuing, he's holding back. The reasoning reveals a high-stakes global chess match. First, there's the personal ambition. According to one analyst, Trump still thinks he can broker a peace deal. With the Nobel Peace Prize announcement in early October, the timing is critical. As analyst Chris Weafer put it, it's a factor because we know the character of the individual. However, if you zoom out, you'll see another layer of strategy at play. The second reason is a strategic nightmare for Washington. The fear that if the West completely isolates Russia, it has no choice but to go all in with China. Some US officials are reportedly worried Russia could become, quote, a more formal subsidiary of China. The stakes of that alliance are staggering. It could mean China gaining almost unlimited access to Russian energy, advanced military technology, and a strategic foothold in the Arctic. After all, this isn't just a vague concept, it's already happening. For example, China's newest Type 096 nuclear submarine reportedly benefits from Russian assistance in making its propulsion system quieter. Then there's Russia's 3 M22 Zircon hypersonic missile, which travels at 9 times the speed of sound. Integrating that kind of weapon could fundamentally alter the military balance and that strategic foothold in the Arctic. It's a technology-fueled Cold War. Russia's massive fleet of nuclear-powered icebreakers could work with China's ice-hardened tankers to dominate the Northern Sea route, effectively controlling a new global shipping lane and its vast resources. And Vladimir Putin isn't just waiting. At the recent Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit, he was seen deepening ties with China and India. He called for a new system to replace what he termed the outdated Euro-Atlantic-centered power model. When Putin says this, he's actually signaling that Russia and China are building a parallel world, creating their own tech stack to operate outside of Western control. This includes financial systems to rival SWIFT, like Russia's SPFS and China's CIPS, which already processed over $17 trillion in 2023. They are building an economic and digital ecosystem designed to be sanction-proof. The situation presents a fascinating duality. On one side, you have the US holding back, perhaps as a masterful play to contain China. On the other, it risks being outmaneuvered while a new global order rises in the east. The world is watching to see who blinks first.
That's it for today on Vashi Daily Finance. Follow, share, and stay tuned for daily updates coming your way tomorrow.